Welcome once again to the DRH Show. Today, I'm joined by the founder of Beauty in the Brain, Sammy Taylor. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's really great to have you here, Sammy. I know you're really busy, so I'm really grateful for your time here. Now, the reason why you're here, Sammy, is because you're the winner of the Cypress competition, which we'll talk more about later. But for now, let's kick this off with you telling us your background, your trajectory in life, and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. So in June 2019, I had brain surgery for a polycystic astrocytoma. It should have been fairly straightforward, but I suffered a rare cerebellum stroke during it, which led to me having to relearn to walk again, to write again. I also had facial paralysis, which led to the UK's first facial reanimation surgery in September 2020. And so I kind of founded Beauty in the Brain throughout the whole thing, because it was a really nice way for me to kind of stay positive, have something meaningful to do whilst I was recovering, because it also donates to Brain Trust, which are an amazing brain charity. And I also, got really into writing there, actually, sharing my journey with others, overcoming the challenges I was facing, and just kind of adapting to the different changes and the post-op complications that I was facing.
Well, first off, Sammy, I really have to say that you're such a brave woman for sharing your remarkable journey, and you've also embraced your experiences and the situation that you're in. But for a moment, let's talk about the Cypress competition. How did you learn about it, and what prompted you to join the competition? And also, if you could just kind of give us a quick summary of your winning piece, and I would imagine that would involve a lot of your life experience.
I actually heard about the competition through my older sister Harriet. So throughout my whole journey, she has really been like a cheerleader and really supportive, and she's been a constant throughout the whole thing and always spurring me on to do more. And even just in the early days when I was kind of navigating the post-op stroke complications, and she was always cheering me on and trying to get me to be better and then go out and things. And I got really into writing, as I say, when I first founded Beauty in the Brain, recovering from my journey. And throughout this whole time, she's really told me that I actually have such talent in writing and I should really pursue that. And she saw this competition and sent it to me on email, and she said this would be perfect for me, right up my street. So I just entered it on a whim, not thinking anything of it. And I won. So I was really happy. And obviously she was really happy because she sent it to me, and she straight away was like, I knew you'd win. But my piece was on basically 10 steps. I think it was 8 actually that you posted, but to overcoming challenges and bouncing back after a trauma and crisis. So I do tend to talk a lot about resilience on my blog, and that's why I said 10 steps as well, because I also have a similar post about 10 steps. And it's basically, you are right, it kind of encompasses my whole journey and the different challenges I faced, but also the steps that really got me through in order to kind of push through the boundaries and overcome the challenges that I was facing as well.
And again, Sammy, congratulations. So for anyone who hasn't read your piece, I'll pop it on the description link so anyone can read what you've written for Cypress. And of course, your writing really stood out. It was voted unanimously by the whole of Cypress team because first, your writing style is so genuine and it matches the kind of writing that we favor in Cypress. It's more conversational, and you also try to link it with your experience of resilience. Now, talking about resilience, because a lot of people, researchers, and also mental health advocates define resilience in a different way. So I was just interested to find out, how do you personally define resilience?
I define it personally as just kind of, again, pushing out your comfort zone and really overcoming the challenges and choosing to see the lesson or the insight in a challenge, and not seeing it as a negative thing or a setback to you, and just knowing that it's there for a reason on your journey. It might not be favorable. We can't always choose the outcomes or choose the situations that we find ourselves in, but we can choose how we view them and react to them, and what we intend to take away from them. And I think that's what I really tried to do throughout my whole journey. I tried to stay as positive as I could, because also I read a lot into the psychology of recovering and how that can really help you recovering, and especially from a brain injury. And so I think having resilience just meant that I was just able to push through a lot more than I think I would have done before, because it was a lot to deal with all at once, with the stroke and the facial palsy, and I have a constantly spinning world as well. My eyes were really affected as well throughout the whole thing. So again, it was overnight a complete change, and I think that had I have not had that kind of resilience to again see the positive and the benefits from the situation, and really kind of see the lessons and the insights that I learned from it, and the things that I gained in terms of, you know, the people that I met, or the opportunities that I was faced with. There were a lot of positives that came out of such a challenging situation. And I also connected with a lot of people in a similar situation to me during that time. So I really took that as a blessing in the whole thing.
Now, of course, Sammy, challenging situations, as you call it, come in different forms. You know, you have your own experience of challenging situations. I have mine, and so does other people. But I think the question here is that, why is it that some people seem to be born with the ability to overcome setbacks with, you know, arguably relative ease, while others seem to be struggling with coping? Do you think that resilience is something that we're born with, or is it more like of a process, or is it more of a response to, as a way of coping mechanism? What do you think?
I do think it's within us all. We all have a you know, that trait to be resilient. But I think that some people more than others can be more resilient to changes, because I think it's just your mindset and how you actually view those. And so again, I can only speak for myself, but I know that in my time of when I was going through it all, I knew that remaining positive as I could, even though that was a challenge some days, was going to give me the best kind of recovery and the quickest recovery, especially for like my brain. And that's what I kind of saw anyway. So I think that having a positive mindset, and again seeing the positives in it, and you know, there were days where, for example, because my eyes were affected, I can't see one of things often, and things move all the time. But I thought to myself, you know, it was a struggle to watch the TV or to read, but at least I still could see them. And I thought to myself, I'd rather see two of things than see nothing at all. So I think there comes a time when, in order to get through your challenges, you have to kind of really focus on what you can do in the moment, and to just do more of that.
No, Sammy, you're really someone who embodies resilience, and like what you've mentioned earlier, you also write about resilience on your website. So, do you have any tips on how we can develop resilience?
I think that resilience is basically a trait that just develops and grows over time, especially when we're faced with challenges. So I think when you're in a crisis, it's helpful then to write down what you're grateful for in that situation, and the lessons, the key takeaways, everything. I believe that everything is kind of sent to us or sent on our path for a reason, and we might not know it straight away. But I think it's helpful to hold on to the kind of belief that one day will be clear to us. And I know that for my own life, when I've looked back at things that I didn't think were favourable at the time, I look back now and I think I'm glad that it happened the way that it happened, and that it worked out. And so I think holding on to that, as hard as it can seem in the moment, just knowing that pain is only ever temporary, everything will pass. And so just kind of hold on through that and stay as positive as you can in the time.
That's such a beautiful message that you mentioned there. You've alluded to seeing your challenging situation as, in a way, as a blessing. So it might sound a bit cliche, but I think there's a power in looking at the brighter side. And also, I think when we're experiencing something, you know, like what you've experienced, or, you know, any other form of challenging situation, it's also important to acknowledge the kind of support system that we have, our family and friends, because ultimately, if we seem to be lacking with resilience, they are there to be our anchor and to provide that kind of resilience level that we need. But I'd just like to quickly move on to a different topic. Of course, you've mentioned earlier that you're the founder of Beauty in the Brain, which is of course a kind of offshoot of your experience. So tell us more about Beauty in the Brain.
Yeah, so Beauty in the Brain actually started because I designed, at the start of my journey, no one knew that I was having brain surgery. So I kept it very, very secret. And the reason I did that, and that was for 6 months when I was preparing for surgery. And the reason was because, again, goes back to that positive messaging. And I knew that there would be times when I would need the support, but I think that people so close to me would worry more than I would some days, and I think it would be hard to shut off if they knew. So I kept it secret, and at the start of my journey, I inscribed a bangle saying something good is about to happen, because it was kind of my little positivity boost when I was having challenging moments or I was struggling and I was feeling like anxious in a moment. I would glance down at my bracelet and kind of regain some clarity when no one knew and I couldn't go to anyone else. So that was there for me. And then when I kind of wore it over the course of a few months and I realized how powerful it had been, all my scans and everything, and just really helping me to kind of prepare for the surgery, I then thought it'd be quite a nice way to have something kind of productive and creative to do whilst I was recovering, because when I was recovering, I was also on long-term sick from my finance job at the time. And just kind of share it with others and donate to Brain Trust. And whilst everything happened as it did, I thought after the surgery, a lot of my friends and family that hadn't known about it were very, very confused, because overnight I'd completely changed and it wasn't supposed to be that way. But then, rather than being bombarded every single day with messages and answering the same questions all the time, which, as lovely as it is and it sounds, it can be very, very overwhelming when you're just focused on recovering. And I was having daily physiotherapy, and so that's really where the blog came in, because the blog started as just general recovery updates en masse. And so it was a way for me just to say, just kind of thank you for your message, but read my blog and to see how I'm doing there. And so all in all, it kind of started as a recovery blog for me, selling a few bangles. And then as it kind of grew, it turned into more kind of blogs on resilience and overcoming challenges and what I learned over the course of the 2 years I was recovering, and then more products and raising more money for Brain Trust.
Absolutely. And you have some lovely products there. You have bangles, you have t-shirts, and you also have necklaces. So I would imagine you're getting a lot of feedback from people. So would you mind sharing to us some of the feedback that you're getting from people?
I think people really just love the story. And I think I realized that, I would make something and think, oh, this is a gorgeous product, but people don't necessarily go for the products, they go for the reason why I do it. And so I think that's really nice in a way, because people are really on board with the fact that I donate to Brain Trust, and I have a very personal reason why I do that. When no one knew about the surgery, I had some very conflicting advice from 2 different surgeons. So I actually reached out to Brain Trust when no one knew, back in February of 2019. And they paid for me to have a private consultation with a 3rd neurosurgeon in order to get some clarity. And I was so kind of humbled and overwhelmed with what their support had done for me, because it just really changed everything in that moment. I was really struggling to come to terms with, the things that I'd been told from the different surgeons. And it really helped me in that moment. And so I did a walk for them to raise some money. It was a sponsored 50-mile walk, but it never seemed enough. And I think that's the main reason why I would just want to continue to donate forever, because I think I could never repay, even though I have now repaid the money of that consultation. I think it goes more beyond how they made me feel in that moment, and I wanted to continue to donate. And I think that with the story, it makes people kind of love the jewelry more, because the jewelry always has a meaning as well. So I always bring in a piece that's relevant to something on my journey, and people just really love that and love the story behind it all.
Absolutely, and it's I suppose when people find out about your story, they become more inspired. Like if a person such as yourself have gone through, you know, a brain operation, and it's not really something, you know, it's not really such a small experience. I doubt that everyone would come out as, you know, you flourish, you thrive, and I think that's one of the good thing about your stories, that people can learn how to, you know, navigate having challenging situations better. You've already touched upon this earlier, that you publish a lot of resources, predominantly on resilience, on beauty in the brain. But could you just talk more about some of the useful resources available on your website? Probably there's more to it than just, you know, resources about resilience. So what any other resources can we find on your website?
Definitely, there's all sorts on my site actually, in terms of just things that I've had to deal with. So not just building resilience, but in terms of recovering and even preparing for surgeries, and also facing kind of acceptance. So my first social outing was really difficult with the visible difference. So I talk a lot about that on my site, and how, you know, wavering confidence levels, how that can affect also mental health, because I experienced a dip in my mental health, which is much better now, but I think that can also happen when you go through such a trauma. It was actually delayed response for me, so I felt like I was on the up, and I think that can happen when you don't necessarily show your emotions throughout the whole thing. And so it kind of really ranges from everything that a person would expect on kind of overcoming a challenge, an event in their lives. And I actually have created a course as well, which is a 6-module kind of PDF downloads with principles that you can work on, and in terms of overcoming challenges as well, in terms of habit formations and mindset changes. So that's something that I want to branch into more of, you know, helping people with actual resources.
Let's talk more about that course. So you said you have a sort of like a guideline on how to better process your mental health, and also your perhaps experience of challenging situation. But predominantly, who is this course aimed for? Do you have to have a lived experience of mental health issue to benefit from this course?
No, not at all. So the course is originally kind of created in mind with either, you know, someone who's overcoming a crisis and challenging event in their lives, and it could vary between, you know, someone with a cancer diagnosis, someone with an illness, to someone, you know, going through a divorce or losing a loved one. So it really varies, and it focuses mostly on just changes in your life and overcoming changes and adapting to them. But it's also written in mind for carers, because I know that my sister and my mom, for example, really struggled whilst caring with me, because when you go through a stroke or a physical change, you have and mental health issue, you have wavering kind of behavioural mood swings and things, and behavioural changes, and that they weren't prepared for. And so without even realising, I didn't even realise that I was using certain tools to overcome. But when I look back at my journey, because I was asked this a lot, I have a little community on Instagram, and quite a few people reach out to me and ask, you know, what I did in my journey. And this is why different modules focusing on journaling, for example, building effective habits, which I know that I had, because when I was recovering, I was also kind of on my own, completely I was in a house share in London, that I was 25 at the time, and all my, you know, people that I lived with were at work every single day. That went on for 9 months, in and out surgeries, mostly on my own. And then when it felt like I was a little bit better to go out, we then hit lockdown. So I had another year at home, completely almost isolated in my bedroom. And so it really kind of goes back to all the things that I found that worked for me in solitude, and how those things can help other people.
Now, Sammy, you've told us about some of the exciting things about beauty in the brain. You have some fantastic products that you're offering to people, and you also have courses and also resources. But are there any other exciting developments about beauty in the brain?
Yes, so I have a new range of sweatshirts and jumpers coming out soon. Maybe next week I'm going to launch those. I also am working on a range of ebooks that will help people, as well as I've just written my own book about my experience, which is now in the hands of publishers, because I know that's a long journey. When you have written one, you then have to face months and months of pitching. So that'll kind of hopefully go through, and then that will come out, and that will be a resource as well that others can use and see my whole journey and different things I faced, because the book covers a lot of different topics, not just recovering from brain surgery, but there's, like I said, the acceptance with social interactions, dating with a visible difference, because I was, 24 to 26 living in London, and also just kind of heartbreaks, family illnesses that went on, relationship changes, because my circle changed massively when I had a stroke. So I think that that's one thing you don't necessarily think of as well, in terms of when you go through a massive challenge. And this is something that I learned really early on, is that you really kind of know who's around you at the time and can support you. And so my friendship group changed massively as well. And again, mental health issues. So that will cover a range of different kind of topics.
Absolutely, and of course, you've already alluded to this earlier, Sammy. But I just want to hear more about the charities that you're supporting, because obviously, what you're doing with Beauty in the Brain is being donated to charities. But talk us more about these charities that you're supporting.
So I mostly donate to Brain Stressed. I have a card range called Face It, which is basically the 5 different emotions. It's supposed to kind of signify the 5 different emotions to go through with a visible difference. And those cards donate a percentage of profits to Changing Faces, for people going through visible difference and navigating differences in society. But mostly Brain Stress, for the reason that I mentioned earlier. They were just so there for me on my journey, and still continue to be now if I ever need them for anything. They're a fantastic charity. They also there's just so many resources for anyone navigating, needing kind of brain surgery, if you're a carer or you're going through it yourself. And they send you an amazing brain box, it's called. It has all the resources. I mean, when I was diagnosed, I had no idea where to even start. I think it's weird because I hear it a lot now, because I have created a little community. So it's not uncommon for me to get kind of a message or email every single day with someone who's just been diagnosed with brain tumor, and it seems really common. But when you kind of don't know about it, there was no one else around me that had one, obviously, that needed brain surgery, that had brain surgery, and there wasn't much on the internet in terms of finding someone relatable to myself. So I was hashtagging, stroke recovery on Instagram and things, and I think it's a lot more publicized now, whereas even 2 years ago it wasn't, and there wasn't really anyone kind of my age. So I think that's the main reason I donate to Brain Stress, because they have amazing meetups as well. I met so many people through their meetups. They have they hold dinners and clubs and webinars that you can attend, and this is before lockdown, so I got to meet a lot of people in person, and a lot of people who gave me so much advice that had been through it.
Absolutely. Now, Sammy, people who are watching this might be inspired to follow your path, and so they might want to hear some tips on how to set up a community or perhaps an organization. So you already mentioned some of the biggest learnings since you started, but if you were to start again, what you would have done differently, and also give us some tips if someone wants to follow your success in creating Beauty in the Brain.
I honestly don't know what I would do differently next time, because I didn't plan to almost start a business originally. So it was very much just going to start as a blog. It was a way for me to just kind of offload things that were on my mind that I couldn't share with anyone at the time. And as I said, it was just going to go as far as a few months in the summer whilst I was recovering, selling a few bracelets. But then after what happened to me, I didn't return to work. So it then became more of a long time thing. I built a kind of a community that way, so it really kind of grew, and it was very it wasn't planned at all. And so I think the main thing that I would still, I mean, it wasn't, I can't really give advice because I don't really know where I would, like I say, where I would start now. But I think the main thing that has been the biggest kind of success in growing it over this course of the 2 years is the story behind it and the why. Like, I do what I do because I'm genuinely passionate about it. And I think because it grew organically from blog, it's very important to find something that you're passionate about and you know a lot about. And you know, for me, it was sharing my journey is how it started, and you can't necessarily get that wrong because it's so personal to you. So yeah, I would definitely kind of, I think there's so much noise out there now as well, which is why it's quite nice that, you know, people, I've built a community and people follow me for my story, and so it's really nice that I connect with others about their story. And I think rather than just being a jewelry business, which I'm by no means, compared to some of the other jewelry businesses out there, like I wouldn't be on their scale, but I have my story and I have my blogs, and I think that's the differentiator there.
I think there's a lively takeaway here. It's all about authenticity. I mean, we live in an era of social media, and we seem to be obsessed with, you know, likes and the number of followers. But one thing that we're missing is that how do you actually connect, and what's the, you know, what's the story, what's the motivation behind what you're doing? And I think it's something that people could connect with ultimately, whatever it is, be it a company or a community. You will soon be more successful, and you will soon be able to achieve your goal. I think that's the important thing that we have to emphasize here. But thank you so much for sharing those, sharing for us your journey in creating beauty in the brain. Now let's talk more about writing, because we have our interest overlaps with here with Psychresh and with Beauty in the Brain. We're in the business of selling words, and I really admire your writing style. For those who want to start with the blogging, what's your tip? Do you want it to be does it appeal to you to read something more conversational? What's your take on blogging? What's a good writing style for you?
I think to be completely like natural, and I think that's why, I mean, I wasn't a writer before or anything, and I didn't think my blogs were very good. I was just sharing my updates to begin with, but people commenting and telling me that they absolutely love my writing style, and I thought, all I'm doing is writing my journey as it's almost happening. And I think that's kind of where I really found, you know, kind of where my skill lay, in that I post about things that I know because I'm going through it myself. And so I think that's where it makes it conversational. Whereas if I was to post on a topic that I didn't necessarily know and would have to research, it'd be hard to make it conversational and relatable to me. And I think it goes back to what you just said about authenticity and showing your true self. And I write only about things that I know about, really, that have come on my journey. And I think that's what helps it kind of come across as a conversational tone.
Absolutely. I think it's more comforting to read with something. I don't know how to put it, but I think that the best analogy that I could come up is having a conversation over a cup of tea with a friend or a stranger. You don't want to really read something stilted and boring. It's not a textbook. It's blogging. It's informal and conversational. You've done a lot with your entrepreneurship, for lack of better word, with your community. But what would you say are the highlights of your advocacy so far? I would imagine you would mention your charity work. But aside from those, what would you say are the things that you would probably remember for such a long time?
Well, that's a hard one. I think, yeah, like what you just said, the obvious is obviously the charity and the fundraising, because I raised a lot more so far than I even dreamt of, and that's going to continue. But I think even seeing Beauty in the Brain evolve to what it is now, because it was just one bangle at the start, and it was just me sharing a few recovery updates, and so now it's obviously people actually go and use it for a resource, and I write blogs that, you know, about confidence and acceptance and resilience, and that people can actually hopefully use and take things away for themselves. All the kind of jewelry and all the product line is really related to a story or a meaning and something, on my journey. And it's now obviously grown into course and things. So I think just seeing it all evolve is just amazing. And then obviously I had the UK's first facial reanimation surgery in September 2020. It was fourth in the world, first in the UK. And so being able to kind of find it within me the acceptance and start to be open about that on Instagram has meant that I've had so many comments and people that have reached out to me. They've seen the hashtag and they're going through a similar thing themselves, and being able to actually educate them on what is out there. That's been a massive thing, and that's changed. I know that I'm speaking to a couple of girls at the moment who had no idea about my surgery, and they regularly send me updates and say, oh, I went to my surgeon this week and I found out you can have this done, and and it's really helped them in that way as well. So I think that's one of the most amazing things about Instagram, building this community.
So, now, Sammy, I would imagine you have such really a busy lifestyle. So would you mind talking about your distressing outlet? How do you pamper yourself?
Honestly, I love to read. I know that's kind of, that I don't love to read like fiction. I love to read like non-fiction, like self-help, personal development books. That's just kind of what I enjoy. Also taking really nice long walks. Very simple, to be honest. And I'm trying this whole meditation thing because I think writing, because I actually work for a mental health company, writing for them, freelance writing. They're called Mind Up, and they kind of have I have a coach through them as well, and she always teaches me and tells me I need to calm down and breathe deeper, and I don't necessarily think I breathe as deeply as I should. So that's one thing I'm trying out, definitely. But then just seeing friends. I'm quite introverted, so I don't like socializing at massive gatherings, but definitely one or two of my close friends and go for like a coffee or a walk with them. Definitely how I recharge.
Absolutely. And we're actually both introverted. A lot of people think that I have a different personality style, but I also prefer my own company. So yeah, I could definitely understand what you're talking about. Now, Sammy, we're already approaching the end of this interview. So I saved 3 questions. They're sort of what you would call what if. So the first thing that I want to ask you is, if money was not an issue, what would you spend it on?
Oh, travel, endless travel. So I've recently gotten into travel. I think I had that bug before my surgery a few years ago, and then I kind of lost it with all the recovery. I thought I was too old. I recently got it back again, and I'm taking on this new kind of minimalist living. So next week I'm in the process of massively downsizing, getting rid of loads of my things in order to kind of travel more and be more free. And I think that it's really enriching. I have barely traveled at all, but I think meeting the different cultures that I have and meeting different people along the way and having different experiences would be really kind of nice and eye-opening as well.
And is there any dream destination?
Philippines.
Oh, actually, that's where I'm from.
Oh my gosh,
Did you say that? Because you can hear from my thick Filipino accent.
Oh yeah, that's my next destination. I was supposed to go there 2 years ago actually to do a so in 2017 I did a volunteer abroad project as a community mentor in Bali, Indonesia, and I was due to do one again in Philippines, and then lockdown happened, and that just so far has never transpired since. But that's still my destination next, to go and do a community like house homestay and house share and really immerse myself in the culture there.
Well, I hope you have a great time in the Philippines, and I hope we could travel together. I'm actually flying to Philippines next month. But another thing I want to ask you is there a particular individual was the greatest influence on your work? Who do you take inspiration from?
Well, there's quite a few different reasons. So Katie Piper, I'm a huge fan of her work for her again. I mean, I've connected with her a few times on social media, but she's just so, her messages are always just so calming, and they really kind of, it's like a, you know, a pep talk with your, you know, your close girlfriend when you see her Instagrams, and she does affirmations daily, and it's just always exactly what you need to hear. And I think seeing her journey, there isn't just no one that has overcome a challenge in my eyes the way that Katie has. So that's really inspiring. But also Christina Carlson, the founder of Kiki K, she's a massive inspiration to me, and always has been, in terms of long, you know, when I was at university many years ago, and I always wanted a quote business, funnily enough, being inspired by her. And I met her at an entrepreneur event years ago, and she was really lovely in what she said to me, and always kind of gave me that advice as well, that's, you know, don't say no, say how, meaning that just never take no for an answer, always push through and find a way to do it. And it's really nice actually, because she's in my eyes, what she has overcome in the lockdown. Obviously Kiki K went burst, they kind of lost sales in the lockdown, and she overcame that, and is now, you know, restarted again a new business, Dream Life Starts Here. And so I find things like that really inspirational, because she built that company for years, and she didn't necessarily let that knock affect her or set her back, and she just moved on to something else and took what she could, the lessons that she learned from that, and just moved on.
I like that. Don't say no, say how. That's a nice message. I'll keep that in mind. Is there anything else that you want to pursue in life?
Definitely writing books. So obviously I said I've got this first book that I've written, and it's a massive process in terms of pitching it out, but I also have 2 more ideas for 2 different ones, and I've actually started the second one now whilst I'm pitching this one out. So it's definitely not a one-hit wonder sort of thing, and it's kind of a career that I want to embark on, to have a few books that I've written, and so that's kind of my next main focus.
Well, all the best with your book, and do let us know as soon as it becomes available. Now, Sammy, this is the end of the interview, so the floor is all yours. Tell us what else is in the pipeline, and if people wanted to reach out to you, what platforms can they get in touch with you at?
Definitely. So I've got hopefully the books in the pipeline, as I just mentioned, but also Beauty in the Brain is expanding. So I've got jumpers and sweatshirts coming up in the next couple of weeks. And also there'll be ebooks from them, and hopefully more courses, and those courses will transfer into actually like live webinars that I'll run and host in my little community. So yeah, I can be found at my Instagram handle is Sammy, BITB, or Beauty Brain UK, so it's on there.
Well, thank you for sparing a chunk of your time. I know you're really busy, and all of those links that you mentioned, anyone who's watching this, they can find that on the description notes, so you can get in touch directly with Sammy, who's the founder of Beauty in the Brain. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to talk to you.